In the quiet, dusty town of Elmridge, life moved slowly. The air often smelled of warm bread from the old bakery on the corner, and the streets were lined with cracked sidewalks and overgrown hedges. Among the worn paths and faded houses roamed a stray dog, thin, silent, and always on the move. No one knew where he came from or where he went, but everyone had seen him. Some called him Buddy, others just the stray, but no one could ignore his presence. He had a tawny coat faded by the sun, deep amber eyes that carried stories no one had heard, and a limp in his right leg that hinted at a painful past. Every morning, like clockwork, Buddy would show up outside the back door of Murphy's Deli. The owner, a gruff man named Tom who had once said he wasn't a dog person, had eventually softened after seeing the dog's persistence. At first, he tossed scraps to scare him off, but Buddy didn't bark or beg. He simply sat, watched, and waited, polite, calm, and strangely dignified. After a week, Tom began setting aside a small paper bag of leftovers, half a sandwich, a piece of chicken, sometimes a biscuit. What struck Tom most was that Buddy never ate the food right away. Instead, he gently took the bag in his mouth and disappeared down the alley, tail low but wagging slightly, like he had a purpose beyond survival. Curiosity got the better of the townspeople. Over time, many began to notice the same pattern. Buddy would appear like a ghost, collect food from different generous hands and vanish. He was never seen eating, never caught resting. It was as if he was on a mission. 10-year-old Emily, who lived across from the abandoned rail yard, had started a secret routine of her own. Every afternoon after school, she'd leave a boiled egg or a slice of bread on a napkin near the old lamppost. She'd hide behind her window curtain, watching Buddy approach slowly, sniff the food, and then, just like clockwork, carry it away. It wasn't hunger in his eyes. It was duty. One day, Emily asked her mother, "Why doesn't he eat it?" Her mother, who worked long shifts and was always tired, just sighed. "Maybe he's saving it. Dogs can do strange things when they've had a hard life." But Emily wasn't satisfied with that answer. On the other side of town, old Mrs. Greaves, who ran the flower stall, had a soft spot for strays. She'd seen her fair share over the years, but Buddy was different. "There's love in that dog," she told a customer one morning as she handed over a bouquet. "He ain't just surviving, he's protecting something, or someone." By now, whispers were starting to spread. What was the dog doing with the food? Where did he go? Why didn't anyone follow him? Tom at the deli decided one day that he'd find out. He handed Buddy the food as always, but slipped out the back door quietly, keeping a safe distance behind the dog. The streets were nearly empty that morning, and Tom's old boots thudded softly against the pavement as he trailed the animal. Buddy made his way through alleys and overgrown lots, crossing beneath a broken chain-link fence into the woods near the edge of town. He moved with urgency, careful and alert, often pausing to look back. Tom crouched behind a tree, holding his breath. Then he saw it. In a shallow pit beneath an overturned wheelbarrow, hidden among thorny bushes and piles of leaves, was a shivering skeletal figure, a cat. Its fur was matted and patchy, and its ribs showed beneath its filthy coat. Buddy dropped the paper bag beside the cat and stepped back, tail wagging gently. The cat meowed weakly and began to eat. Tom's eyes widened. His breath caught. He backed away, stunned. A dog feeding a starving cat every day without fail. The dog hadn't been scavenging for himself. He'd been carrying food for another creature in need. Back in town, Tom said nothing. But his actions changed. The next day, the food wasn't scraps. It was warm, freshly cooked meat, wrapped carefully, in foil, placed inside a small box with a note that read, "For your friend." Others began following his lead. Emily left fresh water in a plastic bowl. Mrs. Greaves dropped off soft towels for bedding. Even the grumpy butcher down the street began setting aside liver and bones. Buddy remained silent through it all, never asking, never expecting, just accepting their kindness and continuing his mission. Children began drawing pictures of Buddy at school. The hero dog, they called him. He became a silent guardian of their imaginations, a symbol of kindness, loyalty, and love that needed no words. Emily began writing about Buddy in her journal. I think he's an angel, not the kind with wings, the kind with a tail. What? No one knew, however, was just how far Buddy had gone to protect his fragile friend, and how deep their bond truly was. What had brought them together? What had they been through? The answers still hid in the shadows of those woods, in that makeshift shelter no one dared disturb. But one thing was clear. Buddy had given the town something it had long forgotten: compassion. Not just for animals, but for each other. One day, as Emily waited by the lamppost, Buddy didn't come. The food sat untouched. Her heart pounded with worry. Was something wrong? Had he been hurt, or worse? Had he lost the one he was protecting? The next morning in Elmridge was eerily quiet. The usual clamor of early risers, the clinks of coffee mugs, and the familiar barking of neighborhood dogs were absent. But most noticeably, the alley behind Murphy's Deli stood still. No scuffed paws approached the back door. No amber eyes peeked around the corner. Buddy hadn't come. Tom stood there holding the warm paper bag with fresh meatloaf he had specially prepared. He waited longer than usual, glancing up and down the alley with furrowed brows. The minutes ticked by, and still, nothing. A sinking feeling grew in his chest. At the same time, across town, Emily pressed her face to the window again. Her napkin lay undisturbed beside the lamppost, a small boiled egg turning cool in the morning air. She rubbed the glass nervously and whispered, "Where are you, Buddy?" She didn't eat breakfast that morning, worried sick about her silent furry friend. After school, Emily couldn't stay inside. Gripping her notebook tightly, she ran across town to Murphy's Deli. Tom was closing up early, pacing out front with worry painted across his weathered face. "Have you seen him?" she asked breathlessly. Tom shook his head. "He didn't come this morning. That's never happened before." Emily's stomach twisted. "I think something's wrong." They both knew there was only one way to find out. With a gentle nod, Tom led the way down the winding alleys, through the rusted fence, and into the woods. The air felt different there, heavy with anticipation. Every step forward was a step deeper into a mystery that tugged at both their hearts. They reached the place, the shallow pit beneath the broken wheelbarrow, but it didn't look the same. The cat was still there, curled in a tight ball, eyes dull and fur more matted than before. She let out a weak, rasping meow as Tom and Emily approached. Beside her lay the remnants of a chewed-up food wrapper from 2 days ago. And nearby, partially hidden by tall grass, lay a motionless shape. Emily gasped and dropped her notebook. It was Buddy. His coat was muddied and his body was curled protectively near the cat, as if shielding her even in unconsciousness. His sides moved shallowly. He was breathing, but only just. A jagged cut ran along his back leg, caked with dried blood and leaves. His once alert ears were limp and his tongue lolled from his mouth, dry and cracked. "No!" Emily cried, rushing forward. Tom knelt beside the dog and pressed a hand gently to his chest. The heartbeat was faint, thready, but still there. "He's alive," Tom said softly, but barely. Emily was already pulling off her sweater and gently tucking it under Buddy's head. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered, "Why didn't you come? Why didn't you let us help you?" Tom inspected the area. A few feet away, he saw signs of a scuffle, paw prints, broken twigs, and claw marks in the dirt. "Coyotes," he muttered grimly. He must have fought them off to protect the cat. The realization hit Emily like a punch in the chest. He stayed. He stayed to protect her, even when he was hurt. Tom swallowed hard, emotions swelling in his throat. This dog is something else. Carefully, they lifted Buddy using an old tarp Tom found nearby. The cat, though weak, limped behind, refusing to leave the dog's side. It was a fragile procession through the woods, Emily holding her breath, Tom guiding them slowly, and the wounded dog still managing a faint wag of his tail as if to say, "Thank you." Back at the town's only vet clinic, the receptionist rushed them inside. Dr. Lacey, who had spent her life treating strays and farm animals, immediately cleared a space. "Get him on the table, now," she ordered, already snapping on gloves. Hours passed. Emily waited in the lobby, gripping her damp sweater and praying harder than she ever had before. She didn't care about school, dinner, or anything else, just Buddy. The vet finally emerged, wiping her brow. "He's a fighter," Dr. Lacey said with a weary smile. "The wound was deep and he lost a lot of blood. But you got him here just in time. We've stitched him up, given fluids, and stabilized him. Now it's up to him." "And the cat?" Emily asked urgently. Dr. Lacey's smile grew softer. "She's malnourished, but she'll recover. I've never seen a dog so devoted to a cat before. He must have been feeding her for weeks, maybe longer." Tom looked at Emily, voice thick with emotion. He wasn't just surviving. He was saving someone else. Word spread through town like wildfire. The stray dog who carried food for another animal. The protector. The guardian. The hero. People who once ignored Buddy now gathered outside the vet clinic, leaving flowers, treats, and get-well cards. Children taped drawings to the window. One showed Buddy in a cape, standing proudly beside a smiling cat. Another showed him limping through the woods with a bag in his mouth and a heart in his chest. Emily spent every afternoon in the clinic, reading stories from her notebook aloud to Buddy. Though unconscious at first, his ears would twitch at the sound of her voice. The cat, now named Willow, rested beside him, often curling against his side with soft purrs of gratitude. On the fourth day, as Emily read a story about a hero dog who saved the world, Buddy opened his eyes. Just slightly. Just long enough to see her. And then he wagged his tail, a single slow wag. Emily burst into tears. "You're back. You came back." Dr. Lacey rushed in, checking his vitals. "He's going to make it." And just like that, the whole town breathed again. The morning sun broke over Elmridge like a gentle promise, casting golden light through the windows of the small veterinary clinic. Inside, the room that once smelled of antiseptic and fear now buzzed with warmth. Buddy lay on a soft blanket. In the corner, his bandaged leg propped up gently, eyes half-lidded in a drowsy calm. Beside him, Willow, the once starving cat, had curled herself into a ball against his chest, as if she belonged there, as if she always had. It had been a week since Buddy had been rescued, and his recovery was nothing short of a miracle. Dr. Lacey had never seen anything quite like it.
"He has the will to live," she kept saying. "But it's more than that. He has something to live for." Every day more people came to visit, not out of obligation, but out of gratitude. Buddy had quietly reminded them what compassion
Looked like. What loyalty could mean. What love could survive. Emily was the most devoted. She visited before school, after school, sometimes even sneaking away during lunch just to read her stories to him. Buddy had begun responding more. His tail wagged when she entered the room. His ears perked slightly at the sound of her voice, and his amber eyes watched her, like she was part of his world now, as if she'd always been there. One afternoon, Emily sat beside him with her notebook open on her lap. She looked at the dog, now wearing a tiny collar with a name tag that simply read, Buddy. "Did you choose Willow?" she asked him softly. "Or did she choose you?" Willow purred as if answering. Dr. Lacey entered the room with a clipboard and smiled. "He's healing faster than I expected," she said. "But his leg, it may always give him trouble. A bit of a limp, maybe some stiffness when it's cold." Emily nodded. "That's okay. Heroes don't have to be perfect." Tom, standing behind her with a grocery bag full of treats and soft food, added, "He earned that limp. He walked through pain for love." The townspeople had started a donation jar on the counter at the deli. "Buddy's Fund," it read in big red letters. Coins and bills poured in from strangers, customers, and children who emptied their piggy banks without hesitation. No one asked for anything in return. This dog had carried food for weeks to a creature no one else even knew existed. That kind of love deserved a home, and the people of Elmridge were determined to give him one. But the question still lingered. Where would that home be? Tom offered to take him in, but his apartment above the deli was cramped and always noisy. Mrs. Greaves, though willing, had allergies and a dozen cats already. It was Emily who finally said it. "I want to adopt him." Her mother, quiet until then, looked at her with cautious eyes. "It's a big responsibility, sweetheart." "I know," Emily said, "but he already chose me. He watches for me every time I walk in. He knows my voice. And Willow. She needs someone gentle, too." Her mother paused for a long time, then nodded. "Let's talk to Dr. Lacey." A week later, the adoption papers were signed. Emily beamed as she held Buddy's tag in her hand. "You're coming home," she whispered, bending low to kiss his head. His tail thumped twice on the floor. Moving day was like a celebration. The whole town watched as Buddy, still limping but stronger, was led through the streets on a soft leash. Children followed behind, carrying balloons and a homemade sign that read, "Welcome home, Buddy and Willow." Someone brought cupcakes. Another played music from a speaker tied to their bike. Buddy's head turned constantly, eyes taking in every familiar face. Some waved, others had tears in their eyes. This wasn't just a dog. This was their dog, their hope, their reminder of what it meant to care. Emily's backyard had been transformed. A cozy doghouse painted sky blue now stood under the oak tree, with Buddy's den carved lovingly above the entrance. Beside it sat a small enclosed cat shelter for Willow, complete with a soft cushion and a window facing the garden. Buddy sniffed every corner slowly, tail wagging as Willow gracefully inspected the cat house. Emily laughed, clapping her hands as she said, "You both have your kingdoms now." That night, under a warm blanket and surrounded by fairy lights her mom had strung up, Emily sat with Buddy and Willow nestled beside her. The stars blinked overhead. Fireflies glowed gently in the bushes. It was a quiet night, peaceful and kind. "I used to think the world was too big to notice anyone like me," Emily whispered, gently stroking Buddy's fur. "But you noticed a hungry cat. You fed her even when you were hungry, and now everyone notices you." Buddy looked at her, those amber eyes soft and calm. He pressed his nose against her hand as if to say, "I notice you too." As the weeks passed, Buddy's limp healed more than expected. Willow gained weight. Her fur turned glossier, and her once fearful gaze softened. She no longer trembled at every sound or ran from outstretched hands. She had learned to trust because of a dog who never gave up on her. At school, Emily wrote an essay called "The Dog Who Carried Love," and it was read aloud at the town library's community night. Parents cried. Children clapped. The mayor of Elmridge came forward and presented Emily, Buddy, and Willow with a certificate of honorary town guardians. Tom even renamed one of his sandwiches at the deli, the Buddy Special, served with a side of kindness and a paw print on the napkin. But for Buddy, none of it mattered more than his quiet routine. Each morning, he would sit on the back porch and watch the sun rise beside Willow. Emily would join them with toast and tea, and together, in silence, they'd breathe in the morning like a sacred ritual. Because Buddy had done something few creatures ever could, he gave everything he had, not to be noticed, not to be praised, but simply to protect another life. And in doing so, he brought an entire town back to life. The wind carried a soft chill through the golden leaves scattered across Emily's backyard. Autumn had arrived in Elmridge, painting everything in shades of amber and cinnamon. Buddy lay beside the old oak tree, his eyes half closed, basking in the sun's warmth, while Willow curled against his belly, purring softly. From the porch steps, Emily watched them with a quiet, contented smile, scribbling poems into her journal. 2 months had passed since Buddy had come home. 2 months of peace, healing, and new beginnings. And yet, in the back of Emily's heart, a question still lingered like a whisper in the wind. Where had Buddy come from? No one knew. He had simply appeared in town, surviving on scraps, always, carrying food somewhere else, always gentle, always silent. Even Dr. Lacey had scanned him multiple times for a chip, but there was none. Emily had once tried to ask him where he came from, laughing softly as she spoke. "Were you an angel, Buddy? Dropped here to remind us to love?" But Buddy had only wagged his tail, nudging her hand for another pet. That morning, a delivery van pulled up near the house. Emily and her mother were in the kitchen making pancakes while Buddy lay sprawled out on the living room rug. The doorbell rang, and Emily raced to open it, expecting a package of dog treats she'd ordered online. But the delivery man stood awkwardly, holding something wrapped in an old cloth. "This was found in a shipment from out of town," he said, glancing at the address. "It had your name on it, sort of." "Well, Buddy's actually." Confused, Emily took the bundle. It felt strange, hard, metallic. She sat on the floor, unwrapped it carefully, and gasped. Inside was an old leather collar. Weathered and scratched, the tag attached had one word engraved in fading silver letters. Max. Buddy. Looked up from his rug, ears perked. At the sight of the collar, he slowly stood. His body stiffened. He walked over and sniffed it. Then something in him shifted. His eyes changed, softening with a flicker of something far away. A memory. "Max?" Emily whispered. "Is that your real name?" Buddy, Max, sat down slowly, his eyes locked on the collar. And then, as if the weight of everything he'd once forgotten had returned, he let out a low whine and pressed his nose to the cold metal. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She sat cross-legged in bed, the collar in her lap, Willow at her feet and Buddy beside her. Her mother walked in quietly with an envelope in hand. "This was in the package too," she said gently, placing it on the bed. Emily tore it open. Inside was a photograph. A boy, around 10 years old, smiling brightly, his arms wrapped around a young German shepherd, Buddy, unmistakably. His fur was glossier, his body stronger, but the eyes were the same. Loyal, warm, brave. On the back of the photo were the words, "Max and Tyler, best friends forever, October 2019. Emily read the date twice. That was nearly 5 years ago. Tears stung her eyes as she looked at Buddy. "You had a boy," she whispered. "You were his." Her mother sat beside her, reading the note that came with the photo aloud. "To whoever finds this dog, his name is Max. He belonged to my son Tyler, who passed away in a house fire in 2020. Max was missing the night of the fire. We never found him. I think he ran scared. I always hoped he survived. If you're reading this, thank you. He was more than a pet. He was my boy's heart. Please take care of him." The room went silent. Emily wrapped her arms around Buddy and sobbed. "You didn't run away, did you?" She cried into his fur. "You lost everything. You were scared, alone. You didn't just survive, you kept loving. You carried food for someone else, even when your own heart was broken." Buddy didn't move. He leaned into her, gently licking her tears, his eyes glistening. The next morning, Emily walked to the memorial tree planted outside Elmridge Elementary, the one dedicated to local children who had passed. She placed the photo of Tyler and Max at the base of the tree along with a small bouquet of wildflowers. "I found him," she whispered. "I promise I'll take care of him." As the days passed, Buddy Max seemed lighter. It was as if naming the past allowed him to rest in the present. Emily started calling him Buddy Max, and he responded to both. When she'd call out from the porch, "Come on, Buddy Max," he'd come trotting, tail wagging, eyes joyful. But Willow noticed the change too. She rarely left his side now. At night, when Buddy Max whimpered softly in his sleep, dreaming perhaps of a boy he once loved, she would nuzzle closer, comforting him with silent understanding. Emily began writing a story. Not just any story, but his story. She titled it, "The Dog Who Remembered Love," and submitted it to the statewide Young Writers Competition. It wasn't just about Buddy Max carrying food to Willow anymore. It was about carrying love through heartbreak. About refusing to let grief destroy kindness. About finding new homes even when the old ones are gone. The town held a candlelight vigil that weekend in honor of lost pets and loved ones. Emily was asked to speak. With Buddy Max sitting proudly beside her and Willow curled in her arms, she told their story. The stray dog who carried food not for himself but for another life. The boy he once belonged to. The cat he protected. And the new girl who became his family. People cried. Grown men wiped their eyes. Children hugged their dogs tighter, and when the crowd fell silent, Emily knelt and whispered, "You're not lost anymore, Max. You're home." Buddy Max nuzzled her hand, and somewhere deep inside, something finally healed. Winter came gently to Elmridge, cloaking the town in frost-tipped trees and soft white snow. Christmas lights twinkled in windows, and the streets glowed with the quiet hush of the season. But in Emily's house, it wasn't the lights or gifts that made the air feel magical. It was the presence of something deeper, something warmer. It was Buddy Max. Now almost fully healed, Buddy Max moved with a slow but confident grace, his limp still there but barely noticeable. Willow followed him everywhere like a silent guardian, her soft steps always near, her eyes never leaving him. They were inseparable now, two souls once lost, now whole. The town knew them as a pair, the boy dog with the lion heart and the skittish cat who found her courage in his shadow. Emily had made sure their story lived on, not just in the essay that won her the statewide writing contest, but in the hearts of the people around them. The mayor, inspired by Emily's speech at the vigil, had announced a town-wide project. Buddy Max's Bench. It would be placed near the school playground where kids could sit and read stories to their pets. A plaque would be carved into the stone with the words, "In honor of Buddy Max, who carried love when the world forgot how." On the morning of the bench's unveiling, the entire town gathered. Snowflakes fell like feathers as Buddy Max and Willow were led to the site. Emily walked beside them, holding the leash, her cheeks rosy with cold, but her eyes bright with pride. The cloth was pulled away to reveal the bench. Silence fell. The plaque shimmered softly in the snowlight. Someone began to clap, then everyone joined in, tears in their eyes, hands clapping gently like applause, meant for something sacred. Buddy Max stood there, tail wagging, nose in the air as if smelling something familiar in the breeze. Emily bent down beside him and whispered, "He'd be proud of you, you know. Tyler, I think he sees you." Buddy Max nudged her cheek, and in his soft eyes there was peace. That evening, as they sat by the fireplace, Willow curled up on the couch, Emily nestled against her mother, and Buddy Max lying near the hearth, something in the air felt heavy and still. He had been slowing down for days now, eating less, sleeping more. His steps were shorter, his breathing a little deeper. Dr. Lacey had come by and said gently, "It might be his time soon." "His body is tired," Emily had cried, hugging him tightly. But she also understood. He had given so much of himself, to a boy, to a cat, to a town, to her. She wouldn't let his last days be anything but filled with love. So they made every moment count. She baked dog-friendly treats and fed them to him by hand. She played soft music, letting him fall asleep to piano lullabies. She even wrote him bedtime stories, tales of brave dogs and clever cats who saved the world one kindness at a time. On Christmas morning, Emily woke up early. She had wrapped a small box with a bow and placed it beside Buddy Max's bed. Inside was a locket with a photo of him, Willow, and her. On the back it read, "Thank you for loving us first." But when she reached his bed, her heart stopped. Buddy Max was lying on his side, his eyes closed, breath silent. Willow was pressed tightly against him, her body still, her ears laid flat. Emily dropped to her knees. "Buddy," she whispered, "please wake up." No movement, she touched his fur, Still warm, still soft. She leaned in, her forehead against his. Tears streamed down her face, quiet and endless. Her mother came running in, and when she saw, she dropped to her knees too, wrapping Emily in her arms. "He's gone," Emily whispered. "He's really gone." But in that stillness, something shifted. Willow lifted her head. Slowly, she stepped forward and gently placed her paw on Emily's hand. Her eyes, once fearful, now held something stronger. It was as if Buddy Max had left his bravery in her care. Emily smiled through her tears. "He gave us everything, didn't he?" A few days later, the town held a final tribute for Buddy Max. Children brought drawings. Adults brought flowers. Tom from the deli handed out sandwiches labeled the Guardian Special. And at the bench that now bore his name, Emily placed the locket wrapped in a ribbon underneath the plaque. Dr. Lacey spoke softly during the ceremony. He was more than a dog. He was a healer, a teacher. He reminded us all that love doesn't stop when it hurts, that caring for others is the bravest thing we can do. The townspeople lit candles and stood in silence. Then Emily stepped forward. She looked around at the faces, some tearful, some smiling, and began to speak. Buddy Max wasn't just my dog. He was Tyler's first. And when Tyler was gone, he carried the weight of that love like it was food, feeding a starving cat, then feeding our starving hearts. I think he knew we needed him, even when we didn't know it ourselves. He didn't wait to be rescued. He rescued us. She paused, the cold wind brushing her face like a whisper. I think that's what love really is. Doing for others even when it hurts. Giving when you have nothing left. And never, ever giving up. From the crowd, people began to cry again. Quietly, openly. That night, Emily sat on her bed with Willow curled up beside her. She looked out the window at the stars and imagined one of them shining just a bit brighter. "Good night, Buddy Max," she whispered. "Thank you for carrying love when the world forgot how." And somewhere, far beyond the snow and silence, in a field where the sun always shines and the pain no longer lingers, a boy and a dog ran together once more, free, whole, and home.